With the NFL draft just a month away, finally, I'm going to give you guys exactly what I promised a few weeks ago, and that is to do some mock drafts. So here we go. Let's get into it. Here is my first 2021 NFL mock draft. Let's get to it.
So kicking off this 2021 NFL mock draft, it's the Jacksonville Jaguars picking first. This pick is an absolute slam dunk, no-brainer. This pick is Trevor Lawrence, the Clemson superstar quarterback. This pick is a slam dunk A+ pick. We already know that this is going to be Trevor Lawrence, no doubt about it. They have won the rights to be able to select this phenom quarterback with long hair. He has all the tools necessary to be the franchise quarterback for Jacksonville moving forward. The second pick, this one is going to be a little bit tough for the New York Jets. It's going to be a matter of which quarterback goes to the Jets, because I have to believe that with a new regime that Joe Douglas is going to want to be able to draft his own guy for his new head coach, Robert Saleh. And he's going to want to get a quarterback that is going to fit the Mike LaFleur system, which is a mock-up version of the Kyle Shanahan system, in which he came from back in San Francisco. It's pretty difficult to say which of the quarterbacks between the three quarterbacks that are set to go after Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, or Trey Lance. One of these three quarterbacks will be selected with the number 2 overall pick, but I think the New York Jets are going to select Zach Wilson because the BYU product is just a more exciting type of player. So I think it would be the wisest move for the New York Jets to select a more pro-ready quarterback as opposed to two guys that are project players that are very promising, but they need a little bit of time to be able to refine some of their skills. Zach Wilson just has the skills right now, and he is pro-ready. So I believe that the New York Jets are going to go with Zach Wilson, and I think he's going to be a very good fit in the Mike LaFleur offense. He really has the mobility, and he is very much a perfect fit for the West Coast offense. The third overall pick originally belonged to the Miami Dolphins, but they made a trade where the San Francisco 49ers gave up a boatload of draft picks to be able to move up from 12 to 3 to select Trey Lance, the quarterback out of North Dakota State. The reason why I believe that that Trey Lance is going to be selected by the 49ers is I believe that the scheme fit that Trey Lance is going to be able to fit really well with the scheme that Kyle Shanahan has for the San Francisco 49ers, and also believe that Trey Lance really has the bigger upside of the two quarterbacks. The Atlanta Falcons here at the number 4 pick, they have needs aplenty. They have needs aplenty on the defense and some as well on the offense. This, if I was the general manager of the Atlanta Falcons, I think that by virtue of the fact that they are at the number 4 pick, they can have a really, really good chance to get a really good top-notch player here. But there are some quarterbacks that are available, and with a quarterback class like this, it will be very, very difficult for the Falcons to pass on one. And then the fact that Matt Ryan is not going to be a Falcon forever, there is a very real possibility they could be looking for a developmental heir apparent. So a lot of people are probably saying Justin Fields. I'm going to say Justin Fields also. I am inclined to go with Justin Fields here as the pick for the Atlanta Falcons, even though they have a lot of needs on defense. They need some help at edge rusher. They need some help at the back end, safety at corner. It's a little early probably for anybody at this juncture at number 4. A trade down could be a very good option for the Atlanta Falcons if they want to go for an immediate help as opposed to an heir apparent. At the number 5 pick, Cincinnati is in a very, very good spot right here. They need lots of offensive line help, as that is very well documented. They have had some huge issues protecting their franchise quarterback. The last year's number 1 overall pick, Joe Burrow, he went out with an unfortunate ACL tear, ending his season prematurely. The Cincinnati Bengals are going to prioritize the offensive line probably heavily in this draft. So look for them to select offensive tackles, guards. They have been able to get some pretty good players in free agency. However, I don't believe that they are done beefing up the offensive line to solidify it and protect their franchise quarterback. So I believe that even with the additions at offensive tackle, I believe they're still going to take Penei Sewell here, the offensive tackle who is clearly the best one in the class. The Oregon big man just has almost all the tools necessary to start right away at offensive tackle, whether he starts on the left side or the right side. You have his two bookend offensive tackles to pair together, and then maybe, since Riley Reiff was just signed, maybe you can put him to left guard, and that would really, really solidify this Cincinnati offensive line that sorely needs help. This pick was acquired by the Miami Dolphins by trading down from 3 to 12 and then moving right back up to number 6 with the Philadelphia Eagles. The Miami Dolphins did a really good job here being able to maneuver their way around down and up the draft boards to be able to acquire the player that they probably could have chosen at number 3 had they chose to stay. But they got some draft picks and they wound up getting the best player here on the board and the best receiver in the draft, and that is LSU's Ja'Marr Chase. Devonta Smith could possibly be the pick here, as he is also a very good receiver. Look for him to go next, but I believe that this pick here is Ja'Marr Chase here out of LSU, so that way Tua Tagovailoa can have a bona fide number 1 receiver. The Detroit Lions get a number 1 receiver here in Devonta Smith, although they could be looking at a linebacker here. Micah Parsons is a pretty large possibility here at number 7, but I think that the talent of Devonta Smith might be a little bit too much to pass up here, and Micah Parsons does have some character, so don't be surprised if Parsons drops a little bit. The Panthers at number 8 miss out on the quarterback after the 49ers traded up from... So the Carolina Panthers can fill some needs elsewhere on the team and roll with Teddy Bridgewater unless there's a trade for Deshaun Watson, but that is looking not very much like a possibility right now. They could use some help at wide receiver after losing Curtis Samuel in free agency to the Washington football team. They could use a little bit of help on the offensive line, particularly at the guard position. They could use some help in the secondary. They could also go for a tight end. So I'm thinking here that this is going to be the pick where Kyle Pitts is going to go. He's going to come here at number 8 to the Carolina Panthers. So the Panthers are going to be able to give Bridgewater a weapon as well as a blocker. And Kyle Pitts is really a top 3 talent. I think he's number 3 on my board and probably on a lot of other people's boards. I don't see Kyle Pitts falling out of the top 10. It would be very, very surprising if he does fall out. I think that the Panthers, probably here at number 8, are probably where he would most likely land. Kyle Pitts has been mocked to the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't really quite see that after all, because the Philadelphia Eagles have other needs to fill in, and tight end is one of the last needs that they need to fill in. Carolina, as much as they need help in other areas, but I think here at number 8 they can afford to go with a tight end, and giving Teddy Bridgewater that down-the-seam threat tight end is like having a wide receiver. The Denver Broncos have very little needs on the team despite the team having a losing record. They are built pretty well in just about every single facet of their football team. The quarterback is a little bit of a question mark right now. Drew Lock is very much in danger of losing his job. The Denver Broncos could very well be in the market for a quarterback if they don't believe in Drew. But the Denver Broncos, the quarterbacks are gone, so they are not going to be able to land one here. I believe that it's too early for Kyle Trask or Alabama's Mac Jones. So at number 9, I could definitely see the Broncos maybe move down for Jones if they like him enough. But with a team that really could use some help in some areas of the defense, I think they could probably take the Penn State linebacker Micah Parsons, even though there are some concerns with Parsons. He is very polarizing. He's up pretty high on some people's boards. He might be lower on some other people's boards. It's a very much a mixed bag for Micah Parsons. But the Broncos have very little risk going into this draft, and I believe that they could solidify their inside linebacking core by going with Parsons here with this pick. Pair him with A.J. Johnson, the promising young player, and they could have a really good inside linebacking core. And here we go with the boys, the Dallas Cowboys, Jerry Jones's Dallas Cowboys. They are going to go here with a cornerback here, Patrick Surtain II. The Dallas Cowboys have had some documented issues with their pass defense. They lost Chidobe Awuzie to free agency, but they brought back Jordan Lewis, the nickel corner, so that is pretty good for the Cowboys that they were able to get to be able to get half of their starters back. They really have sorely missed Byron Jones, who left in free agency last season to the Dolphins. Patrick Surtain II is probably the best corner here in this draft. There are some talks about Caleb Farley being the number one corner. They could go with either one, and they would be just fine. The New York Giants have drafted offensive linemen really high in the draft recently, with Dave Gettleman at the helm as the general manager. However, the Giants, to me, I think they're actually not too bad. I know that they could use some help at guard and maybe an offensive tackle, depending on what happens with the development of Andrew Thomas, the offensive tackle they took at number 4 in last year's draft. There's a possibility he can still work out. They have Matt Pert, who filled in when Thomas was disappointing. I'm not so sure if they go for an offensive lineman this time. The Giants have a pretty big need at outside linebacker. They have a really large gaping need at nose tackle after losing Dalvin Tomlinson to free agency. So I think that the New York Giants here are going to move down here at this spot. I think they might be targeting some pass rushers, and the team moving up to number 11 is the Minnesota Vikings. So for this trade, Minnesota is going to move up 3 spots from 14th overall to move up to a number 11 to take a player, whereas the Giants are going to get the Minnesota's 3rd and 5th round picks. So at this trade up, the Minnesota Vikings are going to get their future franchise left tackle. They released Riley Reiff, so they want to be able to get a blindside protector for their quarterback Kirk Cousins, and they're going to take the best offensive tackle available in Northwestern's Rashawn Slater. He has a really, really good skill set, and I think he's going to be just a fantastic fit for Minnesota. After moving down from 6 to 12, the Philadelphia Eagles here can still land a top-tier talent at wide receiver in Jalen Waddle, the other Alabama wide receiver. The reason why Waddle is going to drop a little bit is due to some injury concerns and his smallish frame. If he adds a little bit more weight, the injury problems could be taken out of the way. Although as Jalen Waddle is very much up there in the class of Jamar Chase and Devonta Smith. So the Philadelphia Eagles are going to get a dynamic weapon here in Jalen Waddle. He is very much a Tyreek Hill type of player, about in the same mold, probably just a little bit taller. Jalen Waddle is a potential big play threat that Jalen Hurts would really, really help. Jalen to Jalen, sounds good, Philly. The Los Angeles Chargers have needed offensive line help for so long. Their left tackle, Sam Teavee, signed with the Indianapolis Colts, so a new left tackle is sorely needed for the LA Chargers and be able to protect Justin Herbert. This pick here, I think, goes to the next best offensive tackle available on the board, and that is Christian Darrisaw out of Virginia Tech. Now, the Giants are back on the clock again after moving down from 11 to 14, in which Minnesota traded up. The Giants here are going to get a really good chance to get some pass rushers here who are probably at pretty good value here with the 14th overall pick. It kind of depends on which of the Miami edge rushers that they want to go for. There's Gregory Rousseau, Jalen Phillips, and then there's Michigan's Kwity Paye here, who might be a pretty good option if they want to go for an outside linebacker here with the 14th overall pick. There's also the possibility of offensive line. You got Elijah Vera-Tucker, he's still available. However, I think they're probably going to address the biggest need here with the outside linebacker, and they're going to take Gregory Rousseau, another polarizing player. He's very up and down on some other people's boards, team boards. Gregory Rousseau really has a really good skill set. He's got a really good chance to be able to be a good pro. The New York Giants are probably going to get a steal here in Gregory Rousseau. Right here at pick 15, the New England Patriots here taking Mac Jones, the quarterback out of Alabama. There's a lot of hype building around Mac Jones going in the top 5, possibly to one of the 4 teams that are going to be selecting here in the top 4. I'm not quite buying that. I don't really believe that Mac Jones is really quite that much of a talent yet. He is very much a work in progress. But I definitely believe that Mac Jones is going to be a very good quarterback at this level. He really has a pretty good skill set. He's just a little bit of a work in progress. He's also been surrounded by a gifted group of wide receivers, but that does not take away from his skill set. And his skill set does have the potential to be a very good franchise quarterback. And given maybe a year or two to develop, Mac Jones could be a very good quarterback for a football team. Give him to Bill Belichick, and I think that Mac Jones could very well be pretty close to what the New England Patriots have been looking for since they let Tom Brady go away to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And now we get to the very middle of the first round of the NFL draft, in which the Arizona Cardinals picking 16th overall. They have some needs in various areas. They could use some help on the offense. Offensive line is one of them. They did add a few pieces in free agency, but they could bolster a little bit more later in this draft. They could use some help on the defensive line, even though they've added J.J. Watt to the mix. They could really use a nose tackle. But I think the biggest need, arguably, for the Arizona Cardinals is cornerback after losing Patrick Peterson to free agency. They have a young stud in Byron Murphy, and they also have Robert Alford, who is also a fairly decent cornerback, but I know that the Cardinals can do better, and they have had a pretty big need there for quite some time. I think that this is probably going to be their chance to be able to land a cornerback, and Caleb Farley has dropped down, and I think that this will have to be where Farley is going to be picked here. I think that the Arizona Cardinals are going to select Caleb Farley here. The young and promising Virginia Tech corner, he will be a very good outside corner to be able to help with Byron Murphy, whereas Robert Alford could possibly play in the slot, and that is how you can replace Patrick Peterson. Elijah Vera Tucker here for the Las Vegas Raiders is the pick, because they just traded away Trent Brown back to the New England Patriots, so they need a replacement at right tackle. They have a pretty good, solid left tackle in Colton Miller. They just want to... The Las Vegas Raiders, it would behoove the Raiders to be able to find a solid replacement. Elijah Vera Tucker is actually a pretty good, solid scheme fit for their zone blocking. Vera Tucker may project better as a guard, and if that's the case, then they probably could use Vera Tucker, plug him in at guard, and maybe look elsewhere for an offensive tackle. Regardless, this is very good value. Elijah Vera Tucker would be a very good pick here at number 17. And with the Miami Dolphins' second pick in the first round, 18th overall, the Dolphins got their number one wide receiver in Jamar Chase. They can fill some pretty big needs here. They could probably go for a running back. The team really has sorely needed a number one running back. They probably could go for ETN or possibly Najee Harris here, but I think the team has 2 second-round picks, so I feel pretty strongly that they're going to be able to get a really good running back there in the second round. They could turn their attention to the defense. They could use a little bit of help on the offensive line still. Their outside linebackers, their edge rushers are a little thin right now. So I think that they're going to go with an outside linebacker, and they are going to take the other Miami pass rusher, the man that played with Gregory Rousseau, and that is Jalen Phillips. The Washington football team here at 19, they unfortunately missed out on their chance to be able to get a franchise quarterback because all the first-round quarterbacks have been taken right off the board, with Mac Jones going 4 picks earlier to the New England Patriots. So the Washington football team here can probably fill some needs here on the offense and defensive side of the ball. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah here at the linebacker position here from Notre Dame is a really good athlete. He is he's very much a tweener safety linebacker. He is listed currently at 215 pounds. He could easily put on some weight for the linebacker position, or you can take him and you can play him back at safety. Owusu-Koramoah to me very much reminds me a little bit of a lesser version of Isaiah Simmons last year. They are very, very similar in skill sets. They have the sideline-to-sideline speed that teams are looking for on defense. He is also really good off the ball. He can do some things with rushing the passer. Give this man to Ron Rivera, and I believe that Owusu Koromoa could be a very good key piece to this Washington football team defense that is already very good. Aside from quarterback, the Chicago Bears' next biggest issue is offensive tackle. They had some problems protecting whichever quarterback was starting for them, whether if it was Mitchell Trubisky or Nick Foles. There were some big-time pass protection issues from the interior, from the outside. The offensive tackle position must be addressed at some point in the draft for the Chicago Bears. I know that they brought back Germain Ifedi. He's a relatively mediocre offensive tackle. He might be able to play a little bit better at guard. They could kick him out there, and then they could be pretty good here if they take Sam Cosmi, the offensive tackle out of Texas. He fits their blocking scheme. I know that Cosmi is kind of someone that's up and down on people's draft boards. It's pretty tough to say where Cosmi's going to go. I think that this is probably the best range for him, which is about in the 20s, and this is a pretty good spot for the Chicago Bears to get themselves a right tackle. The Indianapolis Colts here really need an offensive tackle, particularly on the left side after Anthony Costanza has decided to retire. Here at 21, it might be a little too early for some of the guys at the late first round, and some of the other left tackles were chosen before this pick, so they might have to make a trade to be able to acquire such a left tackle that fit their blocking scheme. So the Colts right here could probably go address their defense, and I know they could use an edge rusher, so they could go here for Michigan's defensive end Kwity Paye, who has the ideal weight and size to be able to play in their 4-3 defense. Danico Autry left for the Tennessee Titans in free agency, and Justin Houston, the aging pass rusher, is still a free agent. There is a pretty good chance that they could get him back. The Tennessee Titans are also in a pretty similar situation where they've had an offensive tackle leave. They traded Isaiah Wilson to the Miami Dolphins, who wound up coincidentally being released after having some issues with that team. This pick is probably going to be an offensive tackle. They did sign Kendall Lamb in free agency, but is he really truly a legitimate answer, or is he just a depth filler? So the Tennessee Titans here, I think they're going to take Tevin Jenkins, the right tackle out of Oklahoma State. The New York Jets at number 2 got their franchise quarterback, so what they do here at 23, the Jets can go several different ways. They can get some pass protection to help their quarterback. They can use some help at guard. They could use some help at offensive tackle. Maybe get an upgrade at the right tackle position, but Tevin Jenkins just went off the board. They probably could take Jalen Mayfield here. He would be a pretty good fit at right tackle and pair him along with Mekhi Becton. They need some help at cornerback. They don't have too much of anything outside of Bless Austin. So a cornerback here might make sense, but J.C. Horn and those guys are gone. There's a possibility of Greg Newsome II here. This pick here could easily be the best running back in the NFL draft. The Jets have a really, really big gaping hole at running back. So that would really be a pretty interesting there. They probably take Travis Etienne or Najee Harris. My nudge probably goes to Etienne, the Clemson running back. I really like Etienne as a possibility to be kind of used something similar to like Aaron Jones has been used for the Green Bay Packers. I think he really has that type of ability. He's got really good vision. He's a really good pass catcher out of the backfield. He will be able to be utilized in inside zone and outside zone runs. It'll be a really, really interesting offense with Zach Wilson, and then you add the running with Etienne. And at this pick at 24, which belongs to the Pittsburgh Steelers, a lot of people are expecting running back here at number 24. But I think that's too predictable. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers can acquire a good running back in the next round. So I think they will probably most likely look to address their biggest need, which I think is at left tackle, because Alejandro Villanueva is a free agent. They can look for a young replacement here in Jalen Mayfield out of Michigan, who fits pretty well into their blocking scheme. He's a very scheme-diverse offensive tackle, can operate in zone blocking, can operate in a power gap. With Trevor Lawrence on board, Jacksonville can turn some attention to maybe giving him a possible wide receiver to be able to catch some passes for him. It's very possible that they could look to the defensive side of the ball to improve it. They weren't a very good defense, and they've actually been able to do a pretty good job of being able to acquire some help via free agency. But I think in this draft they could continue to go that they could continue to keep on building there on the defensive side of the ball. A really good prospect has dropped, and that's Zaven Collins, the outside linebacker out of Tulsa. I think that Jacksonville could really use some help in the linebacking core. There are some players there that are just not that great. Miles Jack kind of comes in and out of the lineup with injuries, and they really have missed Telvin Smith. He has been one of their better players on defense for quite some time, and they have sorely missed him. I know that they have made some draft picks and invested some capital there at the linebacker position, but Zaven Collins is probably going to be one of those guys that can really make a difference on Jacksonville's defense. And at number 26, the Cleveland Browns are going to address arguably their biggest need, and that is their defensive tackle situation. After Larry Ogunjobi left for the Cincinnati Bengals, a division rival, they're going to need to find a replacement to pair with Sheldon Richardson, and they're going to do this with Alabama's Christian Barmore, probably the best interior defensive lineman available in this draft. Some talent appears to be dropping to 27. The Baltimore Ravens are kind of getting some calls here, and there's a team that is going to move up here for a player that is free-falling here at number 27, and the team moving up is the New York Jets. And as far as the details of how this trade went down, the Jets are gonna get the first round pick from Baltimore, and then Baltimore is gonna move down from the first round to the second, and then the Ravens are gonna get the Jets' third round pick, and the Jets are gonna get the Baltimore Ravens' fourth round pick. And having 3 first round picks will help out the New York Jets quite a bit, be able to get some talent, especially a player that has dropped. So the New York Jets have popped up from 34 to 27 to get this player here, J.C. Horn, the cornerback out of South Carolina. Him being able to drop is very much a large possibility. Some teams need left tackles, some teams need some receivers, quarterbacks. So there's a very real possibility that the stock for cornerbacks might be a little bit down, and some teams don't really have the need for a cornerback. The Jets do. That the New Orleans Saints have quite a bit of needs to fill. Unfortunately, they weren't able to fill much in free agency, so I can see them maybe possibly moving down for some more picks so they can fill the needs in the draft. So at number 28, they are certainly a team that could move out, but I think at this spot there is a pretty good talent here that they could use to help fill on their defense. They lost defensive tackle Sheldon Rankins to the New York Jets, and I think Levi Onwuzurike here could be a really good fit here for the Saints. They really need some defensive tackle help pretty badly. The Green Bay Packers here are in a very good spot, and the way I see it, I think that the Packers have to go corner here. I know that they brought back Kevin King to a one-year deal, but don't expect him to be around for any longer than just 1 year. It would be a very wise move for the Packers to select a young corner to develop behind Kevin, so that way the young corner can take over his spot. So the Green Bay Packers here are going to take Greg Newsome II, the Northwestern cornerback, who is a pretty versatile player. You can play him inside, you can play him outside. I think he'll probably start out in the inside, possibly as a dime or a nickel corner to start things out. The Packers, I know, are going to value having a lot of cornerbacks here. The Buffalo Bills here at 30 are a team that don't really too many glaring needs on their football team. Running back is a possibility here at 30, but I tend to doubt it because they're probably going to give Singletary a chance, and they're probably going to use Zach Moss more in his second season. The Buffalo Bills here, I think they would probably most likely down here take a pass rusher. I'm not sure what they like in terms of edge rushers, but there is a team that is going to give the Bills a call here, and I think that they're going to move down, and there's a team that is going to want to trade up to this pick here, and that team moving up here is a team that doesn't have too many needs that they need to fill, so they can probably afford to give up a few picks here to be able to make this trade, and that team is the Denver Broncos. So this trade goes down exactly like this. The Denver Broncos are going to move up from 40 to 30 from the second round into the first round, where they are going to swap picks with the Bills, and the Bills are going to get a 6th round pick from Denver to be able to make this move. So Denver here, they are going to take this edge rusher here, Azeez Ojulari. The Broncos are going to take him for 2 reasons here. First off, they have Von Miller, who is an aging player. He was almost released from the Broncos, but they decided to have him stay with the Broncos for a little bit while longer till the end of his contract. And Bradley Chubb seems to be bitten by the injury bug every single year, so it wouldn't be a bad idea for the Denver Broncos to acquire a dynamic edge rusher who is super athletic, that can be a very good fit in their 3-4 scheme. And Vic Fangio does a very, very good job with edge rushers, defense in general. Azeez Ojulari here at the bottom of the first round is really good value. The Denver Broncos, if they have an opportunity to go get a player that they really want at good value, I believe that this would be a really good one here. You bolster the pass rush, and the Denver Broncos have a really, really nice defense with Micah Parsons, and then add Azeez Ojulari. The poor Kansas City Chiefs, they need a left tackle pretty badly. Losing Eric Fisher after they released him due to salary cap, they are left in limbo right now at this current point. They did sign Mike Remmers, so they do have a right tackle. So I think the Kansas City Chiefs here, they probably have to fill a need somewhere else. I think that they could probably use some pass rush help, and they can take this guy here, Jayson Oweh, the Penn State defensive end, who had an incredible pro day. He is a very lightning fast edge rusher here. I think he ran a 4.3, which is really, really good for a down defensive end. So Jayson Oweh here, I mean, there's a lot to get into besides just his speed. He has a really, really good skill set, a little raw, but the Kansas City Chiefs could use some edge rusher help here after possibly losing some players to free agency, and they could use that help across from Frank Clark. And with the last pick in the first round, the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Bucks have the number 32 overall pick. And so for this decision here, it's very hard to say where Tampa Bay could go. They don't really have any glaring needs. So with this pick, I think that they could probably go for a future depth filler. And Ndamukong Suh was only signed for a year. He's an aging player. So I think that the Buccaneers here could go for Davian Nixon, the defensive tackle out of Iowa. He is a really, really good football player with a lot of upside, and he is really not quite ready to start on a football team, so that's why I have him going a little bit lower. Now here we go to the second round, where it's up to the top, where the Jacksonville Jaguars are selecting with the 33rd overall pick. With this pick here, they get a young rookie wide receiver weapon here in Kadarius Toney from the Florida Gators. This is a really, really nice young football player that can be a really, really good young receiver here for Trevor Lawrence. This is what teams tend to do. They always like to select a quarterback and then give him some receivers. However, you may have to give him a little bit of time to be able to adjust to the pro game. There are some concerns about him being able to get free against strong press coverage. That is something that is expected for young, and you pair along with DJ Chark, and you have a good solid future here for Jacksonville with the passing game. So we got Baltimore back on the clock again after trading down from 27 to 34. The New York Jets moved up to 27 to be able to select their cornerback. The Baltimore Ravens here have a little bit of a dilemma here with their right tackle wanting out, Orlando Brown. He has explained that he wants to go play left tackle. They have not granted his wish because Ronnie Stanley is their current left tackle, and he's a very good one, so they are not going to do that. They are likely going to be trading him away to another team so he can play left, and the Baltimore Ravens here can select a replacement for him here in Alabama's Alex Leatherwood, who is very much what the Baltimore Ravens look for in a big-sized offensive tackle. He is an Alabama Crimson Tide player. The Baltimore Ravens love to draft Alabama Crimson Tide players. So this seems like a consensus pick here for the Baltimore Ravens is another Alabama player to go play for the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens have always liked to draft Alabama players, going all the way back to the days of Ozzie Newsome. The Atlanta Falcons here can really go for the weakest at this point, which is the linebacking position, and they could really get a really good football player, Nick Bolton, who is going to be a very good fit as a starting Mike linebacker. He'll be able to start right out of the gates. You can take Deion Jones, put him back to outside linebacker so he can freelance and probably go work on Trayvon Merrick, the free safety out of TCU, drops this far into the second round because there are a whole lot of teams that just don't really need safeties in this draft. So the Miami Dolphins are going to land the best safety in the NFL draft, and with their third pick, with their first being in the second round, the Miami Dolphins are going to get a heck of a football player here. Trayvon is really a versatile DB. He can line up at free safety, strong safety, and he might even be able to actually play some slot corner. So the versatility will probably come into play where some teams will look at him, and I think they're probably going to take a liking to him. For the Miami Dolphins, he'll probably fit in that free safety role, which there is not really a bona fide starting free safety. I know that they drafted Brandon Jones last year, but I think that Trayvon Merrick is the better player and will probably take it over if the Miami Dolphins decide to go that route. And they also have Eric Rowe at strong safety. Maybe there's a possibility that if Brandon Jones is the decision for free safety, maybe they move Merrick over to strong safety, maybe to provide some competition for Eric Rowe. And at the 37th overall pick, the Philadelphia Eagles got themselves a top-notch wide receiver in Jalen Waddle. Now they can probably go to the defense and address some help that they need at cornerback. They have had some sorely needed help there at the position for quite some time. They moved on from some cornerbacks that didn't work out too well. Sidney Jones, Rasul Douglas. They haven't been able to find some really good replacements there. They do have Darius Slay, who was actually a very good cornerback. He has struggled a little bit there in Philadelphia, but he could bounce back. They could use a little bit more help to go along with Darius Slay, and they can get a pretty good corner here in Georgia's Eric Stokes, who is an ideal fit for their zone coverage. That's what they employ there in Philadelphia. In the first round, the Cincinnati Bengals were able to address their offensive line. They could continue to do so here in the second round with some guards, but I think that maybe this time the Cincinnati Bengals will address their defense. They could go for some linebackers. They need some help there. They still need some help along the defensive line, and they could always go for a pass rusher. Added Trey Hendrickson in free agency, but we're not entirely sure if that's enough. So I think that they're probably going to take an edge rusher here, and Boogie Basham is a pretty good prospect here. Pair him along with Trey Hendrickson. Carolina, unfortunately, has missed out on potentially getting a rookie quarterback, but I think they most likely will be trading for one. If they do not, they know that they can hold on to Teddy Bridgewater, work with him. So they could turn their attention to the defense, where they can probably get themselves a really good cornerback here in Tyson Campbell, who is a big, long, tall press corner that is like a perfect complement to Dante Jackson, who is more of a shorter corner. Tyson Campbell here is a really good ideal fit for the outside, which is where you can pair him along with Jackson, and you can keep developing Troy Pride. He can probably play in the slot. Carolina here is going to get a pretty good corner here, but he will need a little bit of more time to develop. In time, Tyson Campbell is going to be a very good player here for the Carolina Panthers. After the Bills traded out of the first round back into the second, here at number 40, the Bills can take a guard here. I know that Jackson Carman was an offensive tackle at Clemson, but he might project better as a guard. You can probably play him at left guard. After all, the Bills only have 2 guards on the roster right now. They lost a couple in free agency, but they did bring back John Feliciano back from free agency. So it would be pretty wise for the Bills to probably look at some guards, maybe whether he can be a backup or he can start. Cody Ford, he is an offensive tackle that can play guard. They also do have Darrell Williams, who can play right tackle as well. So there's always some possibilities to bring in some extra added depth just in case if you don't have anything there. And so the Bills couldn't go wrong here by taking by taking some pass protection here for Josh Allen. And now we get to the second frame of the second round, which I will just give a long list of the rest of the picks here for the second round here, starting at number 41, where the Detroit Lions get their linebacker here, Nick Bolton, out of Missouri. And then the New York Giants get their offensive lineman here, a guard, and they're going to take Landon Dickerson here out of Alabama to help protect Daniel Jones. The 49ers take a cornerback here, Aaron Robinson, out of UCF, because Richard Sherman is still a free agent and will likely part ways with him. And then at number 44, the Dallas Cowboys are going to move down. Taking a look real quickly here at the trade details, the Steelers get the 44th overall pick, and they swap with the Dallas Cowboys, and they get the 55th pick, where the Cowboys get a 4th round pick in this year's draft, and then a 2022 third round pick from Pittsburgh to be able to make this move. With these Pittsburgh Steelers, they're going to move up and take their running back Najee Harris, who has dropped a little bit more further than I projected him to go to, but that's just how things played out on the board. And running backs are generally pretty much very well taken here at the second round. And then at 45, the Jacksonville Jaguars here get a tight end, which they've sorely lacked for quite a while. They get Pat Freiermuth out of Penn State. And then at number 46, the New England Patriots get a big receiver, Terrace Marshall Jr. out of LSU. They have some smaller receivers that can play in the slot right now. You have Julian Edelman, Nelson Aguilar is tailor bait for the slot, and then you have Kendrick Bourne, who was just recently brought in. None of those guys are really, really big receivers, but they are fairly good ones. Terrace Marshall would just add another young weapon and provide some competition. And then at number 47, Asante Samuel Jr. here gets taken by the Chargers. They have a pretty big need at corner, so they select one here. And then the Las Vegas Raiders here at 41 get some linebacker help. Here they take Jamin Davis to play outside and help out there. And then at number 49, the Arizona Cardinals move down, and the Tennessee Titans are going to move up a little bit of ways. As for this trade, the Titans move up from 53 to 59, just a few spots, in which the Arizona Cardinals get a 4th round pick in return for this trade. Take Rashad Bateman, the wide receiver out of Minnesota, to replace the departed Corey Davis. And then at number 50, the Miami Dolphins get their running back in Javonte Williams. The Washington football team at number 51 gets their franchise quarterback in Kyle Trask out of Florida, and he will sit behind a year behind Ryan Fitzmagic. And then at number 52, the Chicago Bears get Andre Sisco, a strong safety, to pair along with Pro Bowl free safety Eddie Jackson. And now we get to the last frame of the second round, in which the Arizona Cardinals, who moved down a few spots, they select Joseph Ossai, the edge rusher out of Texas, to be able to play in their 3-4 defense and add some extra needed pass rush for the Arizona Cardinals defense. The Indianapolis Colts finally get their offensive tackle in Liam Eichenberg out of Notre Dame. And then the Dallas Cowboys at number 55, after moving down, select Rashad Weaver, the defensive end out of Pittsburgh, to add some pass rush. Aldon Smith is a free agent, so they could really use some help there and give DeMarcus Lawrence a partner to go and get the quarterback. Then at number 56, Seattle does what they usually do. They like to trade down to acquire more picks. So the details of the trade, where Kansas City moves up from 63 to 56, the Seahawks get a 4th and 5th round picks from Kansas City in return, so that way the Chiefs can get their man in Dylan Raduns. And at number 57, the LA Rams replace Troy Hill, the slot corner. They take Kelvin Joseph here out of Kentucky. And then number 58, the Baltimore Ravens get a rookie wide receiver to help out Lamar Jackson. They take Tylan Wallace, the wide receiver out of Oklahoma State. And then number 59, the Cleveland Browns get their linebacker in Chaz Surratt. And number 60, the New Orleans Saints get their linebacker to help out, offset the loss of Alex Anzalone. They take Jabril Cox here out of LSU. And then at number 61, Ronnie Perkins, the outside, and then at 61, the defensive end Ronnie Perkins out of Oklahoma gets picked up here by the Buffalo Bills to help bolster their pass rush. and pair along with AJ Epinesa. And then at number 62, the Green Bay Packers get their developmental right tackle here in James Hudson out of Cincinnati. He is a big, raw, athletic offensive lineman here that the Packers generally covet. And then at number 63, the Seattle Seahawks finally take their player here with their first pick in this NFL draft. They take some pass protection and run blocking here for Russell Wilson. They select Ohio State's Wyatt Davis, who is a very good fit for their blocking scheme. And then lastly, at number 64, the Tampa Bay Bucks, who are a team that have no needs, so they can afford to get some pass protection here for their franchise quarterback. And they take Trey Smith, the guard out of Tennessee.
If you made it to the end and watched the whole entire video, thank you very much. You are awesome. You must love the NFL draft. Not as much as I do, but you are definitely one of those NFL draft super fans, very much like myself. It's very fun to speculate on where these teams could go as far as being able to help build their team, make their team better. I'll be sure to come up with one more mock draft right before the NFL draft starts. It should be on draft day eve, so be sure to turn on your notifications and subscribe to the channel if you have not for the very last NFL mock draft. It will be 2 rounds with trades, and I will also be looking to do a live stream for the NFL draft on days 1 and 2 and possibly 3 depending on how things go. I have a tentative time which is about 6:30 Central Time. So once again, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys for the next video and the next NFL mock draft.